the Foley game. The Foley game is dangerous.
It sure is. Everybody snapping celery and shit.
The industry is just absolutely corrupt and out of place.
Yeah. Curb stomp Jerry.
Yep. Well, now that we have addressed the problem of...
Foley art.
Well, that... Are you recording right now?
I am, actually.
You are? Okay. So we've gone all this way before saying good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah. I'd like to get a nice lead in. It's foreplay. You don't just want to barge into the room and tear your pants off.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, welcome everybody. This is the official, yes. That's it.
Oh, okay. So are we just...
This is the official yes. Yes.
Okay. Good morning.
Yes. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Dan. How are you? I feel the conversation now feels different now that I know we're being watched. Now that I know we're recording, it feels invaded somehow.
You feel like you're being probed. You feel like you have some alien fingers.
Yeah, I'm just saying the vibe completely changes once you know people are going to see it.
I think that's probably true. You can be jamming by yourself, but then someone walks in the door and
it changes the entire way the conversation's going. So if you're our audience, you're actually making our conversation less deep. You are the problem that creates this podcast.
But we love you for it. And together we'll yeah.
Hello, welcome to
the
podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. This is, I think, officially, this is called episode 2. But the third consecutive week of the Patriot Hippie podcast, where we ramble on and continually...
Like the Led Zeppelin song.
Yes, and then hopefully we have a point to the discussion. Otherwise, it is just an exercise in sharing things.
The masterful art of oral transmission.
Oral transmission, exactly.
Yes, sir.
And this is a good thing to do in this time of global uncertainty, to find a good friend and practice oral transmission.
With proper social distancing guidelines.
Of course. You gotta practice safe oral...
And you know what that was? That was a segue, Dan, into our first topic.
Yeah, what's our first topic?
I said, and oral transmission with social distancing guidelines.
Of course, social distancing. Is this a good idea?
Yes, it is. I don't know why you said that should be a question in the podcast, because yes, it is a good idea.
Okay, social distancing is fine. It works. It does the thing. It gets rid of the bugs. Slows the spread, right? We're trying to flatten the curve, as they say in the biz. But like, part of me wants to just be like, people are gonna die. It sucks. Why prolong the inevitable?
The eco-terrorist point of view, well, that's the philosophical term for it, is eco-terrorist. It's not very nice, but that's what they call the view of nature, sort of humans being the virus, nature taking back the planet, that kind of thing. And to an extent, I agree. But I think it's important to remember that no matter what, humans are going to persevere, and no matter what nature does to redo what humans fucked up, if humans survive, there will always be that problem. It'll come back fast.
Well, this is not nature, but I digress. So yeah, I don't think this is going to wipe humanity off the planet. No, we are a pretty resilient species. But
yeah, so all of these... I mean,
and
I understand hate to keep interrupting you, but I was thinking about this earlier, and it's just, bouncing around my head right now. But the problem is, I think you can't, if you don't change people's minds about the issue, humanity is always going to fuck it up, no matter how many times nature tries to clap back.
Okay, well, what do you see as the issue? What is nature clapping cheeks about right now?
Climate change. I mean,
climate change. What?
Like the pollution and in the air and in the water, and the fact that we're just fucking up the planet's natural faculties.
Okay. Yeah. Since you said that, I saw something earlier today. It was. Let me see if I can find the. Let me see if I can find it. It is. Celebrities. Humans deserve the coronavirus because climate change. Can you speak to that? You said nature is clapping back because of climate change. How? Hello?
Is my mic? Oh, there we go. My mic was off. Sorry. Yeah. I feel like because everything has its own natural defense force, it would make sense to me if areas of injury in the planet, like pollution, do have a direct effect on how that is counteracted.
What do you mean how that is counteracted? I don't get the argument that coronavirus is the argument COVID is because of climate change, or that we deserve what we have coming because we're reckless with the climate.
I think there are people who would say either. I think there are some people who are the more eco-terrorist extreme that would say we morally deserve it. But I think, I mean, even just physically and naturally, there is correlation between things that we put into something being what we get out, and putting all of these toxins and shit into the planet gives us a sort of weird butterfly effect cosmic karma thing happen, you know?
Okay, I can roll with karma. I can roll with karma. But this is a lab engineered.
Well, and that's a completely different argument completely.
It's just the philosophy of what's happening is part of the ultimate plan of the universe to correct, to bring things back to equilibrium.
Yes.
Okay.
At least that's how it is for me. I can't speak to, more non-spiritual people who don't necessarily have a belief in a grand cosmic scheme.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just how I sort of seen it.
Yeah, I can roll with that. Whoever the powers that be that decided that it was time to release it. Of course, let's be honest. It is a China virus. You can't. It came from China.
I'm not a huge proponent of the whole, anti-Chinese virus nomenclature. I think you would call the Black Plague a European virus.
Right. If in today's globalized world, it is...
The origin of something is important in this case because the Chinese virus was a product of living conditions that are so condensed with the farm animals that they're raising.
Right.
That the cross-species exchange of virus is sort of thrown out of whack and sent faster.
Yeah, I agree. Because, the argument, first off, the big media was calling it China virus. And then when some woke anchor said, oh, we're probably offending them, they started calling it just coronavirus, and then someone was like, it's not China virus, it's a bat virus. We should call it bat virus because it came from a person eating a bat.
It did not come from a person eating a bat.
I was like, oh my god. Who, man. So yeah, the idea that we need to sacrifice being precise to spare someone's feelings is complete bullshit.
Yeah, I've never been hugely on the woke train. That is what sort of makes me a hippie and not a hipster. A hipster is on the woke train. A hippie is pretty much an absurdist and does not care.
Gives zero fucks.
More of a libertarian type.
Just a socially enlightened libertarian.
Yes, pretty much.
Which seems almost repetitive, but there you go. Yeah. So let's roll on to what I found interesting in the news this week. This is going to be a segment I think we should do. I think each of us should find a topic in the news and we'll talk about it. We'll report on it. So I found that an Air France flight that was going to repatriate about 100 French nationals in Congo, or DRC to be woke about it, but there's nothing democratic or republic about it, so we'll just call it Congo to be precise.
It's pretty much jungle and a warlord.
Yeah. So
is that racist? Was that a bad thing to say?
No, it is a jungle and it is controlled by a warlord. So in
these days, I don't know if I'm being politically correct or politically incorrect or just factual. Like, mental retardation is an actual thing, but if I say mental retardation, I'm an asshole.
Yeah. So I just keep it on the don't be deliberately offensive side, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's like, know your audience, of course. And I'm not going to go around in public yelling the N-word. There's a lot of space between, factual definitions of things and racism or sexism or any ism.
All the isms, just a bunch of bullshivism.
Oh, which that would lead into one of our other topics.
Yes, please.
Identity politics. The pretty much conception that we are lumped into these special groups, whether that's by ideology or, the misconception of race, which race is a social construct, but physical appearance being a factor.
Mm-hmm.
But my argument is that a lot of the... Excuse me.
Mm.
That was tasty.
Yeah, sounds good.
A lot of the sort of identity politics groups, your caucuses, your, this group identity, this shared identity that people buy into very, very early in life, is that the source of all of this strife and just general animosity towards the other?
Mm-hmm. The us versus them aspect of...
Yes, well, and just the alienation of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I'm writing a paper on this right now, but it comes down to what Heidegger would call a sense of inauthenticity.
Right.
We are inauthentic when we lump ourselves into these sort of social groups.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that we do that keeps us from being the sort of openness of humanity, the openness of what it means to be a human and be interconnected with everything.
Right.
And so there's just really interesting, and underpinnings to how and why we lump ourselves into these groups at the risk of losing who we are. Why would anybody want to be anything other than who they truly were? And when they try and find identity in a group, that group immediately shatters identity because a group can't have an identity.
Yes. Okay. I I jig you on that. I got into an argument with someone about a year ago about the like validity of claiming like a heritage as your social group. And the particular person, we're not going to say her name, but she is a Hispanic American, first generation.
Is it who I'm thinking of?
It certainly is exactly who you're thinking of.
Well, if this person is watching, I would like this person to know that she's a badass person.
Okay, you should probably text me who you're thinking, but I'll continue on. So, as you know, she's very big into her culture and big into being woke. So, let's see. No, not her.
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't know if this person is cool or not, but
Let's just go with no.
okay.
You'll see. All right. So she was arguing that having
Oh, I gotcha.
right. it was in our politics class or AP government class, and she goes, or no, we were talking about the melting pot, how America's a melting pot, and how, and the teacher said, oh, it seems like these days it's turning more into a salad bowl. That's how people describe it. And I said, well, that's nobody's, like, you can't blame anybody for that except the current political atmosphere of like grouping people together, because it becomes less homogenized.
Yeah,
and
well,
it just makes a bunch of carrots. It makes a bunch of celery. So
the thing
it's
is the ideal version of diversity is not the sort of diversity of different classes, but the diversity of everybody as an individual and therefore different.
Yeah.
Which leads to these incredible mixtures of culture that create new things, create new life. So I read something that said tradition is just peer pressure from dead people. And I think to an extent that is extremely valid, because honestly, when you go radical with it, the only culture that matters is the current one. It is important to know what happened in the past, but celebrating what happened in the past is kind of dumb.
Yeah, I think I get what you mean. From like a seeing where you came from and waving your flag because you have a flag.
Yeah.
Like, especially, and maybe this is just, this is my patriot attitude about it. The reason that America is such an interesting place is we have the most diverse population on the planet. There are the most successful numbers of minorities in this country. If you want to make something of yourself, you come to America. Why is that? Is it because white people? No. Is it because Hispanic people? No. It's because the ideas of individual freedom. It's the American dream. And it's, you go and you put up your best fight, and the ideas that are the best will succeed. And if you're the holder of that idea, you'll be rewarded for taking the risk.
Well, but that's great and all, but you have to admit there is a tendency that is at the core of capitalism, which, I mean, there are extreme downsides to any economic system because money worship is dumb in and of itself. But in capitalism, there is, at the core of it, an imbalance of power.
Mm-hmm.
Because of man's inherent difference in intellect, man's inherent difference in the groupings of people And when you combine that with an already, you know, biased system towards certain groups, that then makes that American dream a lot harder to achieve. Don't you agree? If you're a black person in this country, if you're a Mexican person in this country, if you're an Indian person, or especially right now, if you're, a Middle Eastern fella.
Do I? The question is, do I agree that that it's harder in the current American system of capitalism
to achieve the
to
American
achieve
dream?
great things if you are a minority?
Yes.
No, I don't.
You don't.
That to me, and I'm a white guy, so I don't know, but the number of successful black people and Hispanic people that I see in really high stations, and you look at what they came from,
Sure, and
it's all walks of life, and
sure, but you have to also admit that there's the problem of not everybody has to work that hard to get to where they are. When you and this is, I don't even think it's linked to white people. I don't think
no,
I don't think it's a white
linked
privilege,
to
but it's linked
station.
it's linked to tradition, and it's linked to people from hundreds of years ago when race relations were a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
You have people who just started at the top.
Right, and that's what I mean by station. It is the difference doesn't really have to do with. I think race is the
it is
most
definitely
ridiculous false construct.
Well, yeah, but race has also been used though, and that's a big part of my argument is that these things don't actually exist, but they exist to the extent to which people believe they exist. Because it's a concept, its entire essence is pretty much based on the opinion of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it exists or not depends gradually on how many people value it. It's like money.
Right. And I think an interesting part about race, and then particularly race in America, is how heavily we stress race. And
for people who don't want to be racist, we certainly do bring it up quite a bit. Yeah.
Everything is based on race. You fill out an application. About... It's what's your race? What? Why does that matter?
Well, and it's like, and I'm a huge proponent of LGBT rights. I don't like the acronym just because I hate acronyms.
It's a long acronym. It's so fucking long.
Well, and just because it's part of that whole social construct thing. Apes together strong is a very powerful emotion in the world. But when you do that, you just belittle the identity of the individual.
Right. You can't be a gay man. You're part of our group now.
Well, and so I'm a huge advocate for the LGBT thing, but I think there's an extent to which that's something that's not as important as it should be. The whole idea of normalization is not to make something special and cool looking and popular, but to make it normal, to make it not cooler or any more popular than another concept, because then people are going to, there's going to be a difference in power. There's going to be a difference in popularity. But if you just normalize something and make it de-legitimized or not de-legitimized, but you know what I mean, de-emphasized, I think you can do a lot of good with that.
Yeah, I think taking the heat off of everybody and boiling it really down to what do you want? And as a person, go out and do it. That's, I think, a lot more powerful than, banding a group of people that look the same together, because that is exactly what we should be trying to get away from. That's all of Enlightenment ideals that we're abandoning when we say, okay, so all the white people go over here.
Well,
It's
but Enlightenment ideals are are a problem in and of themselves, but just for different reasons. But there, there is this sense that as humans, we are more interconnected than we could ever imagine.
and
There's
trying to quantize that, quantitize, you know what I
quantify,
mean.
quantify,
Quantify, that's the
yeah,
one.
quantize. Sounds like sounds, sounds like some hood name.
That's a good one.
Quantize, come get your soup.
Quantize. Oh, that's fine.
This
So
episode 2, Quantize returns.
quantize, quantize. Anyway,
Could be a mixture of quantify and monetize.
yes, quantize. That's what I meant when I coined that
Oh,
word just then. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
you just witnessed history to our
History in the making. Quantizing the value of a group of people is absurd. Because we are interconnected on unimaginable levels, and to loop back to being a greater power in the universe and having the interconnectedness of everything, like everything matters together. Cutting the big pie of humanity into little slices, instead of looking at it as a whole, and then if you want to break it down further, look at it as crumbs of the pie. Don't try to cut it into slices that are based
Yeah.
on the pattern of the burn, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about it. And the thing is, it's the people who try and say that they don't like labels who end up labeling themselves the most. It's I hate to use the term liberal trendy because that's a term associated with Alex Jones, but there's this very large sense that the younger, more left population is anything but themselves. They're anything but authentic, and
Right.
they try to promote this idea of anti-label making, but then they go off and they try and quantize it themselves.
It's like Antifa. It is the contradiction of what it's everything that they stand on is a contradiction. They claim to be anti-fascist, but they go around and
Hit
protest
people with
things that they
sticks.
don't like. It's innately fascist. So, yeah, and that is why. And here's a segue. I would not have voted for Bernie Sanders.
I would have, in a heartbeat.
You would have.
Yes.
Yeah. But now we can't because he dropped out.
Well, he's still on the ballot.
He is, that's true. Things haven't changed that much. But he's not campaigning, as I understand it. You probably know more.
But he's dead in the water. He's not going to win the presidency, but you can still vote for him. He's still on the ballot. His campaign is not inactive. He just dropped out of the race.
Okay.
The race being
the numbers game.
Yeah, the polling, the horse race journalism, that kind of thing.
Yeah. He just said, see you in November.
I'm done.
Bitches.
Y'all can vote for me when you want,
Or if we ever have Democratic primaries.
Right.
Yeah. No, that whole thing, I watched one of his speeches that we have socialism in America for the rich, and I'm trying to make socialism for the poor. That thing. I lost him on that because I believe that cool. You want people to be prosperous no matter where they start. I agree. But it's, do you want equality of opportunity or do you want equality of outcome? That's the question that a lot of people differ on there.
Well, and that's where the cult of modernism loses me, because I'd rather people be happy and, production be slower and life to be slower than for, this idea that maximum efficiency and productivity is the goal of life. It's not. Life is about inspiration and thought and concept and, truth.
Right, and that loops into, individualism, how important it is to know oneself and not have to build your identity on something else. Like how productive you are at work, what you did today, for the company you work for, or, for the group of people you identify with. That doesn't matter. What did you do for you as you? And, socialism for the poor doesn't really work like that. Because the alternative...
Neither does socialism for the rich.
Right. But we don't have socialism for the rich. We have rich people that know how to get out of situations that... That's not what socialism is. His argument is flawed. It's the only way I can explain it.
Socialism, as defined as tipping the scales of economic naturalism by government interference, that definitely leans towards the rich people.
It's because the rich people own the government.
I know, and that's the problem.
The rich people.
The socialism being taking tax dollars and using it for improper purposes and giving an economic thumb on the scale towards someone.
But
whether that's for good or evil.
That's pretending we live in a world where the biggest expenditure is not social safety nets.
Well, a big part of it is defense too. That could be cut, but
okay, yeah. Well, other than defense, but that is, I'm
just saying,
America that's up in the air right now.
America already has 7 of the 10 tenets of traditional Marxist communism. The only 3 we haven't abolished are private property, inheritance, and universal obligation to work. But this idea that America has never been socialist is completely flawed. We were halfway there. We were halfway there by 1945. But this idea that we can
the New Deal is the big push toward it.
Sure, and this idea that we have never been a socialist country, the government should be completely without interference in the private sector. That's an ideal from at latest the 1890s. As soon as civilization really started cropping up all over the world exponentially, the government was already with their hands in the cookie jar on it, So, I don't know. I don't think we can last much longer holding on to this idea that America's never going to be socialist. You're never going to socialize healthcare, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, if you want to pay into it, you already sort of are. So why not tip the scale back into the balance of, you can get what you need and put out what you need. And I don't even know where I'm going with this at this point, but
communism.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I've dabbled in it.
Yeah, but it's different on an individual scale. See, that's going back to individualism.
And it all depends on the size too of the population, because if it's about the sort of equal opportunity, equal means of the production, whatnot, that all depends on the size of the population. Somewhere like Sweden, where it's like 3 million white people.
Yeah, it works really well there.
It works very well in a place where everybody looks the exact same.
Everyone looks the same, everyone's needs are pretty much the same, and everyone's output is about the same.
In a place that's like 5 times more populated than those places, and a lot more diverse and a lot longer history of intra intergroup conflict, I don't think it could ever work here. I'm hopeful, and I hope that someday culture has enough big of a push to make it go there naturally, but I don't think right now America's ready for it. I thought so before Bernie gave out. I thought, there was a chance that that could be the new majority, and that would finally be something that was a popular push towards, natural cultural progression towards that. But I was definitely proven wrong, because now it's between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and I am not prepared to vote for either.
Yeah, I have no doubt that Donald Trump will win, and I have had no doubt since 2016 that he'd win. It's a silent majority.
But it's a huge group of a silent majority that is, by and large, and this is just a fact, by and large, less educated and more homogenous. And, that's why there is a huge black vote for Trump, because there is also a huge number of intercity black people who are very homogenous and very not as educated.
Well, it's the Christian vote. What carries the black people? The black Trump voters it's the Christian vote.
Sure, and that's another big thing, because there you go again. The religious sector is very homogenous and very passionate, and so, it's a matter of playing the game right, but I don't know. I argue the very concept of democracy at this point, because the point of maintaining a society is to make sure the smart people can do what the smart people need to do to take care of everybody else. And so, by giving this was in Plato's Republic, Socrates is saying, Socrates was very anti-democracy, because he knew that if given the choice between a sweet shop owner and a doctor, the doctor gave them bitter medicine and the sweet shop owner only ever made them feel good, then the people would vote for the sweet shop owner and die off pretty soon because they had no doctor.
Which is how I feel about socialism. I feel like it's a stopgap solution to the real problem. And everyone, socialized medicine especially. It's funny that you bring up a doctor.
Well, but that's more of a general idea of people are going to vote stupidly.
Well, people are going to vote for what solves their problems.
Sure.
And solves their symptoms.
Sure.
And if you're, you want that sweet, have it. How's it going to affect you?
Though. But if it affects everybody else, because if you only ever have somebody who's telling you what you're doing is okay, then you're not only hurting yourself, you're hurting everybody. And so then where do your rights end where they encroach upon another's? If your right to life comes at the cost of another's right to life, then it's not valid.
Yeah, well, you can't deprive anyone of the right to life. So
I don't know. I don't even know where we're going with this, but
I don't know. But the idea of, telling people what they're doing is okay seems to be a traditionally liberal ideal.
Well, but it's not even liberal. It's just people who like an organization, people who like organized things, people who like to make political parties that are their own thing. Because the Republicans do it just as much. The only people who don't do it are people who try and think for themselves rather than just get their opinions off of Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you're listening to this, tradition is stupid. Culture hardly matters. What matters is that you have deep critical analysis of self and of your surroundings.
Right, because here's
You,
a
you don't need some stupid identity marker of your heritage to make you important. That's dumb.
you are where you are when you are there.
The only thing you are is you. You are your best and you are your best ally.
Yes. Yeah. Um, forgot what I was gonna say. That's a real bummer.
Next category.
Oh,
How long
let's.
have we been going?
We are hitting 40 minutes.
All right, so I think we have time for one more discussion.
Yeah, let's talk about. Um,
We can make this a shorter-ish episode.
yeah, we can do that. No one really watches till the end anyway, right?
Right, you get like halfway to where you're going, and then you leave the listening part. But
That's
we
true,
could really
especially
say
since it's
anything
on
right now.
YouTube.
We could
This
say
episode.
anything right now, and half of our listeners probably wouldn't even hear it.
That's right.
I can say whatever I want.
We could
and
be conspiring to overthrow
technic-
the government right now.
Oh, but you put it on YouTube, and that's a Google thing.
Oh, and Google is in the back pocket of Nancy Pelosi. So
Nancy Pelosi's in the back pocket of Google. They're the real technocrats.
Google is God. That's why it starts with G.
I'm telling you, man. Those two those two little liberal, trendy, millennial people. They created a pretty powerful government.
They sure did.
They created a very powerful shadow government.
Silicon Valley is the real capital of the USA.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah. Anyway,
Final category.
Here's a little tidbit. So there was a China has 2 aircraft carriers because China wants to play the game too, and so they've built 2, and the first one I'm not even going to pronounce it because anyway.
Please try.
Ling Ning, the Lying Ning. Yes, I don't know. So the carrier strike group, which is the Lying Ning, and 5 other vessels, 5 other warships, were conducting drills southeast of Taiwan, out in the ocean. And what had happened was Taiwan doesn't really like China being there. You know, everyone knows Taiwan's stance on China.
Yeah.
Like most people's stance on the Chinese government.
If you're a Chinese communist listening to this, don't hurt us.
Well,
please.
A Chinese communist listening to this doesn't exist because China doesn't allow YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, too many free thoughts.
I thought YouTube was something that they profited off of.
No.
I guess that's why you don't see a lot of Chinese videos on YouTube.
No, you see a ton of Russian ones though. Gotta
see
love the Russian videos.
A lot of Russians, a lot of
Indian people.
Indian people, yes, I was gonna say.
Yes.
They've taken over TikTok as well.
I haven't seen that.
The Indian people and Saudi Arabians, well, that's not politically correct. Middle Eastern folk, they have pretty much taken over Snapchat. There's a huge Snapchat population of Middle Eastern folk.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Anyway, okay, so Taiwan.
Facebook is now just white moms. That's all that's on there.
Yeah, white moms and old uncles.
Yeah, and grandparents and stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, so Taiwan is likely going to be an area of contest, which, you know, may or may not be. Who knows? It's what I've heard.
Everybody like sort of on pause right now from all that bullshit? Like,
no.
Aren't we just sort of like saying we're not going to do war right now? Because, like, bitch, read the room. Come on. It's not a good time.
Well, that's the best time to strike if what you're after is world domination.
Yeah, but why does China need Taiwan so bad? It's like
because it's
insignificant.
It's close to Japan, and Japan is the future.
You think China's going to take over Japan?
I think China wants to take over Japan.
I think no, Japan. It's always been the opposite. Japan has always been trying to take over China.
Well, of
Well,
course, everyone wants Manchuria, but
everybody wants Manchuria, but
how I see it is, people are saying that this is the century of Asia, right? Last century was the century of America. The century before was the century of Europe.
wait, the 18th century was the century, or the 19th century was the century of Europe?
The 1800. Well, they get the 17 and the 18s. Maybe we split the 18.
Europe gets pretty much everything back to like 1000.
Yeah, they get
after the fall.
They get up until 1845, and then America, and the Americas.
Yeah, so like,
and
it went the Middle East up until like 1000 BC, or I mean up until like 1000 AD, and that sort of area of the Roman Empire,
right,
till the fall of Byzantium.
The Turks,
and then after that, it would have been the age of Europe up until about the 1850s.
Yeah,
and then America from there until like 2001, I'd say would be.
Yeah, I'd say
or maybe
1992.
Why
when
1992?
Well, I don't know the exact dates.
But the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Yeah.
That's 91, I'm pretty sure.
And that was a big moment to step back from the national development stage, and we really started focusing on projecting world power as really the only superpower left. So it's interesting. Anyway, so my point is, China, this is the century of Asia. And
I'd believe
China,
it.
Yeah.
I'd believe it totally.
Yeah, I mean, they're on the up and up. They're finally realizing that capitalism is effective at making money. And
well, they're realizing that capitalism and totalitarianism go very well together.
Especially that, yeah. Except it's more corporate cronyism, but,
I'd see it as the same thing, but okay.
Yeah, the
late stage capitalism is pretty much corporationism.
But it's not capitalism, though.
Oh yeah, it is. Monopolies, oligopolies. The amount of government power that profit companies hold.
Well, laissez-faire capitalism. Right. Okay, anyway. So, China wants to take the world over. That's obvious. We've known that. And they have been plotting to get rid of some people, of course, and drain the milk-sucking people from their population. And
cool.
So now they've murdered people with the coronavirus, with the China virus.
It's not China virus. It's Chinese virus.
Oh, sorry.
You wouldn't say the virus is China. The virus is not China. The virus is Chinese.
Well, yes. The virus is Chinese.
The virus. Saying the virus is China is
China is infecting the world.
Well, I mean, if you look at the last, 20 pandemics. But, that's just me.
China is infecting the world. On accident. They really only mean to kill their own people. Because what happens in China is...
And then we considering Russia part of Asia?
Yeah.
Is this the age of Russia as well?
Well, yeah, Russia is, finally, reviving after Soviet era bullshit. Get it?
I'm pretty sure they just recently, I think they voted on a law to make Putin dictator for life or president for life.
Well, they would. It's a single party state, but yeah, they don't want freedom.
And you know what? If that works out for them, that's great. But
it
also
they can keep on doing that.
It killed 25 million people. And
so 25. That's a gross underestimation. Roughly 60 million were killed under Lenin. So
under Lenin and Stalin and Khrushchev. I guess
the Soviet Union
was a little bit lax, and then Gorby was like a little baby bear.
Yeah, tearing down walls and shit.
His birthmark makes me laugh. Is he still alive? I don't think he's. Yeah, is Gorbachev still alive? I don't think so.
I don't know. Look it up.
Look it up.
You look it up.
I said I will.
Okay.
Damn, Daniel.
Damn, Daniel. All right, so
Gorbachev.
I'm going to throw some ideas out there. If you're listening, if you've made it to 52 minutes, I want you to please drop a comment down below and tell me what you ate for dinner.
He's 89 years old.
Wow, that's an impressive feat.
Wow, and he still looks roughly the same.
Yeah, socialism. Anyway,
that's a cool ass birthmark. I'm not gonna lie.
On you?
No, on Gorbachev.
Oh.
Gorbachev, sorry.
Anyway, so
Gorbachev.
If you are still listening, I'm gonna throw some ideas out there. All right, I'm thinking we do a 5-minute Friday. That's where we can just throw out some quick stuff, and I think they should be videos, and they go up on this YouTube channel, and there's like a little mini vlog, 5 minutes, say what's up, what's piqued your interest throughout the week, and we need to start pleasing the algorithm, because it's just a blank screen or a static screen. The algorithm doesn't like that. So 5-minute Fridays, how do we feel?
Are you asking me?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Just short little tidbits of what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that wraps it up, really.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so many. At least 7 thank you.
This is, I saw that we had a comment when I went and watched this back, and that's big news for us.
That is huge news.
And we got like 7 likes. So if you want to keep pushing those numbers up,
please, and consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing, because you don't want to miss the next installation of Incoherent Ramblings.
Right, Incoherent Rambling, that eventually has a point.
Sometimes has a point.
So, thank you, folks.